Well, good day, everyone. Today, I'm in India. My name is Catherine Leung from Lewis Silk in Hong Kong, and I'm here today with Savitha.
Hi, Catherine. Hi, this is Savitha. I'm from Kohta, Chennai office, and welcome to all the Ius Laboris delegates to India. So let's do this, Catherine.
Okay, so I think earlier this morning you were doing a big panel session on the new labor code, new India Labor Code, and just a quick question on this for our audience. What do you think are some of the key changes that will be brought about when this code comes into, when the new labor laws come into force?
So let me just give a little bit of a background on what these labor codes are about. The Indian system essentially requires that the laws are made both at the central and state level when it comes to employment law. We have about numerous number of legislations, about 29 different legislations, which have now got codified under 4 of these codes. The codes are wage codes, social security, the occupational safety and health, and the industrial relations code. So these 4 codes will now, from now on, deal with all employment law issues as far as India is concerned. So that's one key change because it's a codified law. So you don't have different acts that are going to be there, just these 4 codes. The other very interesting aspect with regard to the codes is that each one of these codes are dealing with a specific issue. So when we look at the wage code, it's basically dealing with what kind of salaries need to be paid. Is there a ceiling as far as the salary goes?
A ceiling? So
yes.
not minimum salary, but the maximum salary? Or?
Yes. So minimum salary, the ceiling is as far as minimum is going. So earlier on, it had only certain industrial establishments that were being affected with that particular ceiling established. But now each and every salary that's going to be paid, there's going to be a minimum wage. The minimum wage is going to be set according to what is known as a floor wage. The floor wage is determined by the central government of India, and based upon that floor wage is the minimum wage that a state can essentially set up. And
for all industries, or is
for
it?
all industries, for all employees. Right. So that's another very, very interesting aspect as far as this code is concerned, is that in India, we have a distinction between what is a worker and what is an employee.
Yes.
So the employees are more like white collar, and the workers are those that are working in factories. With these codes, that distinction kind of obviates. They both are looked at in similar levels, and whatever is being addressed in these codes are addressing employees, which includes the workers also.
Right.
So that's a very interesting aspect. I think that is something similar to what you must be following as a system.
Are you talking about in terms of minimum wage? Yes, we do have minimum wage laws, and it gets updated, it gets reviewed, or if there's a review, it's done every 2 years. And we also only have one minimum wage that applies across all industries.
That's excellent. Yes. So for us, it's going to get done every 5 years. So that's one aspect. So that's the wage code that deals with this. The other aspect that the wage code will also deal with is timing, working conditions, the number of hours a particular employee can work, and what kind of overtime they're going to get. So at present, overtime is something that's not given to all employees. It's given to only workers in factories. But with this wage code coming in, employees writ large will be able to get overtime.
Is this because people in India are usually overworked and the government is trying to impose some sort of a framework to protect workers?
Excellent point. Yeah. So in fact, that's the reason why the 4 codes were brought in. The government felt there is a certain amount of securitization that every person that is working requires. So that's another interesting factor as far as the code goes, that it addresses even those that are working at home. So, you know, our house help will get addressed in it. If you are what is known as a gig worker, like somebody working for Amazon, or somebody working on like a platform worker, you know, you can pick somebody to come to your house and do your work for a couple of hours. That particular person is also addressed under this particular code.
I think that's good. And I think it's, I mean, I speak for Hong Kong, but, you know, just the general Asia Pacific trend is that I think the governments are taking these issues more seriously. For example, in Japan and in Korea, workers are notoriously known to be working very, very long hours, and now there's going to be caps on the maximum working hours for a defined period of time, as well as the minimum wage. So this is all heading in the same direction.
Yes, it's a similar thing for us also, that there will be minimum of 8 hours that you can work. You need to give them a 1 hour break. You cannot extend their work hours more than 16 hours. And if they're doing a night shift, you need to give them a whole day off. And you need to let them know much in advance, like there's a 5-day period that's being provided. So I think there's a certain amount of systemization that has been brought in as far as the employees are concerned. So the other aspect also that they've added apart from the wage code is what is known as the social security code, where everybody now will be given social security benefits. So whether it's provident fund, we have what is known as employees insurance, we have the maternity benefits. So very recently, the 12 weeks maternity benefit that a woman could get now has become 26 weeks.
Amazing.
It's a huge number.
Very
what is
good.
the maternity benefit that Hong Kong has?
Puts us to shame. So currently for mums to be, it's 14 weeks. For fathers, it's 5 days.
So we don't have paternity leave.
You don't
in
have
India.
paternities?
Yes.
Wow.
We don't have. So very interestingly, the central government very recently has asked paternity leave to be given to their employees. But as such, there is no law in India that gives paternity leave. So organizations tend to give.
So I was just going to ask,
So
like,
some
do
of them,
India...
but 4 to 5 days that they are giving. I do have a client that gives about 2 weeks of paternity leave.
And is that considered generous?
Very generous,
Yes.
very generous. And I think a lot of the mothers tend to also complain because they feel that the husbands are not very much helpful and they are sitting at home. So it becomes an added thing.
Well,
jokes apart. But,
I think the law sets the minimum standards, and it's up to the organizations as employers to, see what, to determine what they want to provide to their employees. They've got to act in accordance with industry standards, and also where my view is that there is a war on talent. Staff retention is very important, and people care about these benefits. So, going one step further, besides maternity and paternity leave, what about, parental leave for those who adopt?
Yes. So with the maternity benefit, it is even for adoptive parents. It's about 12 weeks that can be extended to them. And even surrogate mothers can essentially take maternity leave for about 12 weeks. The only thing is that it is for the first 2 children, not for the 3rd child.
You get none after,
yes,
after your 3rd?
Yes. That's a very, very interesting aspect. But that goes with the 2-child policy of India. So
the 2-child policy.
So you're supposed to, actually, it was we should have only 2. And before that, it came we should have only 1.
Right.
So that's how it has been.
What happens if you have more than 2?
No, so that's why they're saying they don't give the benefits. It's to dissuade them to have. But yes, we're not very, very restrictive that you cannot have the 3rd child or the 4th child.
Well, just before we close off, just what the fascinating point I learned yesterday was that 50% of India's population are under the age of, was it 35?
25.
25 years old.
Yes.
And this bucks the trend completely with Asia Pacific, because everybody is worried about the future of our workforce because we have an aging population. And, the land of the rising sun, Japan, China, Hong Kong, probably Singapore as well, like across many countries, we are having this issue, whereas India is in the reverse, isn't it?
Correct. So we've got one of the most useful population, and one very interesting trend is also with the amount of benefits getting in, and with our reservation policy and diversity being augmented across the board. More and more people are getting educated, becoming part of the workforce, and that's the very interesting trend as far as India is concerned. So I think that, coupled with India's emphasis on Make in India, is also churning up population growth as well as the GDP. So it's going to be a very interesting trend. And that's why having these labor codes is going to be extremely positive for India because ease of doing business. It's cut down the compliances by more than 50%.
Wow.
So I think the number of compliances are only about 400 odd. Otherwise, it used to be about 1,500 odd compliances that one needed to do. So it's really cut it in less than half. So that's going to be a very, very crucial aspect as far as India is concerned. So I'm looking forward for this getting implemented.
I guess last question before we wrap up. You know, with this new law, well, new India law that's coming into place, what is the anticipated date when it becomes law?
Oh, this is tough because it's been more than 2 years when it came into being, and the reason it's not yet getting implemented is because it's going to take a bit of a hoist across the country. We have 26 different states, and each one of them have to bring in rules. But it's getting there, so hopefully by the end of this year, we should see the implementation happening.
Okay. Well, sorry, and then final question then. You know, we are all anticipating this new law coming into effect, and organizations need to get their ducks in a row to make sure they're compliant.
Correct.
Do you have a few top tips in terms of what employers need to do in India to get themselves compliant?
Yes. So I think one of the main things would be a fair bit of effective training to the HR, because they'll have to relook at all the compliances that need to be filed. The other thing would be to look at the payroll activities, because the way the wage deduction is going to take place is very different. Okay. So that requires major redressal. So that is a tick off that requires to be done. The third aspect I would say is the policies, because a lot of the policies do not address some of the issues that have been put forth in the labor code. So things like that an offer letter and an appointment letter needs to be given now by law. So the present law does not mandate that it is a requirement, but the new law would, which means, and that's another thing that you should see, and it is irrespective of what level the worker is in. So these are some of the changes they would need to put in place. And I think the third code that I forgot to mention was occupational safety and health code, where there is an equal responsibility by the employer as well as the employee as far as safety concerns are on a particular establishment. So that manual would require also development.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's so lovely to have this coffee chat with you.
Same here, Catherine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.